Okay. Okay, let me just check how this sounds. I think it sounds good. I think we're good. Got a new microphone set up. Um, that's pretty good. That's cool. I wanted to just jump on here and make a video for everyone and want to really talk about what I want to speak about the quality of time that we're in at the moment. And in particular, I want to talk about fear and its impact on us as individuals and as a group, and how to navigate that, and why really I feel you don't need to be afraid at the moment, right? So my understanding of all of this is that we are in a kind of a threshold period between two ways of doing things, right? We're moving from an older way of doing things to a newer way of doing things. And these years in particular are kind of that point of transition, the threshold where you're moving from a cold outside space across the lintel of a door into a warm room. So that's what's happening. We're going from one environment to into another. And the environment is just the background frequency. It's kind of what is informing everything. So we know, at least I hope we know, that our thoughts are not personal. Our thoughts are collective, right? So depending on where you are in the world, depending who you're with, you will experience certain thoughts. Your thoughts are not your own. So I always know this in particular, like when I'm in airports or when I'm in certain supermarkets or just when I go to different countries, I'm suddenly I look like a Church of Ireland minister with my scarf around my neck. I notice that I'm, say, suddenly impacted by different thoughts. When I'm on my own, when I'm in my little house, when everything's quiet, I just experience a very different sort of thought patterns, a very different collection of thoughts. So our thoughts are kind of environmental. And so the thoughts are basically the background frequency of the time. And that's shifting. Things are changing. Um, and a lot of people are beginning to feel very insecure about this. And the reason we're beginning to feel insecure is because the kind of the social contract, the reason that we did things in the past just doesn't work anymore. You know, if you think about it, you think about your parents, you think about even, I think about even me growing up, you know, I'm 44 now. So I was still kind of very much a product of the old system. Um, there was a pathway for me to do all the things, to get married, to get a mortgage, to probably get a decent job, that I might still be in today. You know, for example, that pathway was kind of relatively clear. It was beginning to unravel, but it was clear. Now that pathway is completely gone. Um, and people are noticing this everywhere. The old social contract is broken down. So the old system of doing things, which is making way for the new system, is collapsing. And so what we're experiencing right now and what we have to experience is a kind of a death and then a rebirth. And I just want to say, first off, I think if you're coming to this Discord, if you're part of this group, you don't need to worry. You don't need to be afraid because you are clearly opening up to what this new energy is all about. Okay, from now on, every time I go to my right, I'm talking about the new energy. And every time I go to my left, I'm talking about the old energy. And I'll try not to confuse the two. So, and perhaps the reason you didn't have the greatest time in the old energy is because you're imbued with the new. You know, perhaps some of the reason that you have maybe felt a little lonely in the world or that you didn't fit in or that it was difficult for you to just sort of adjust to work and relationship and family expectations is because there's too much of the new already in you, right? And this is the evolutionary bent. We're all moving towards the new. And of course, there's just some of us who are already kind of there. And that's why I want to say, guys, you don't need to be afraid. because what's coming down the line, what's coming in the future, is going to be much more suited to your genetic, biological, energetic makeup. Mm, so, and just to give you a kind of an insight on what we're looking at, I think it's interesting. We're moving away from a period, ta-da, where we placed all of our authority outside of ourselves. And you can see how we're conditioned. It's very difficult. It's very difficult to be a rebel in society today, the way we're conditioned. We start off, we have parents whose main interest is managing us. I mean, even a great parent, their interest is like, how can I manage this child rather than how can I just create safety so this child can just flourish and be whatever they want. Parents typically in the old system have been kind of managerial parents who had the threat of violence or restrictions or some sort of control. And so we grow up with this idea that we don't have a lot of power. Then we go to school and more of your power is taken away from you. And then, the minute you leave school, you're suddenly like, oh, there's bureaucracy. What about the tax man? What about the policeman? What about this? There's always an authority figure outside of us who we are giving away our power to, because this is the real thing. I mean, you kind of grow up with the belief that they take the power, but to a certain extent, you have to recognize that you are in a transaction and you're giving away your power. The new energy, all your authority is going to come from the inside. You will make a decision whether you want to follow a rule or not. If it feels okay with you, then you'll be like, sure, that makes sense. If it doesn't feel okay, you're going to ignore it. And that's really this new system. This new system, it will involve a form of just self-governance, right? So that just means that you will begin to trust yourself. You will trust yourself more than you will trust other things. So often when you go to ask for advice, and all that happens is that people project their fears onto you. When you say to someone, "Hey, I'm thinking of quitting my job and going to Bali to become a yoga teacher," what you then get as a response is that person's fears if they were in your position. They're not really able to imagine you and really know who you are and know how that may or may not benefit you. So, and so often we are kind of taught to seek advice outside ourselves. What we're learning and what's going to really guide us through this new energy is the ability to just know. So, what we're doing with the meditations here on Friday mornings is we're just tapping into that place inside of us that always knows. There's a part of you, an inner authority. If you've ever kind of done any human design, and we'll look a little bit at human design throughout this year, it's just a system for kind of understanding some of the coding inside your body. And human design, we have a different part of our body that is our inner authority. For me, I have an emotional inner authority. So that basically means that I have to feel a wave of emotion that lets me know, oh, I want to do this or I don't want to do this. Now, that requires me to often kind of not give an answer straight away. I have to go, I need to feel this one for a bit. That might be I need to feel it overnight. I might just need to feel it for 10 minutes. But it's difficult for me to give a yes, no straight out of the box. I need to kind of go on a little process. You will have a similar process involving a different system inside your body. Getting to know that is really important. And this is what I mean by this idea that kind of when you can begin to connect to your inner authority, that's the only thing that matters. We have in the old system was all about fitting in with everybody else. We really we weren't very authentic in the past. We weren't. Like you just think about it. Hmm. Think about how often you were at family events and half the people at the family event just didn't want to be there. But the consequences of not being there, the consequences of being authentic, which is too catastrophic. You would have been shunned by the family. Do you know what I mean? Shit like this. So in the past, our past system, we were always doing things with people who resented doing it. As we move into the future, it's just going to be your response is going to come from like a hell yes, I want to do this. And everyone's going to be okay with that. And just think about that, the ramifications for that in terms of relationships. Our relationships are going to become much more autonomous, where it'll be two people and there'll be no more of this, well, you should want to come here with me, or we're a couple, we need to do these things together. This is very much the old way. The new way is we're a couple, we match, our frequencies match, you know, and we love each other and we love each other's freedom and we love when we vibe together. And we're also super aware that there's times when we need to be autonomous and separate. I'm not saying break up, maybe I'm saying break up, but I'm saying there will be like codependency can't exist in the future. Codependency was what we grew up with in the past, but it cannot exist. Just the background frequency will not support codependency anymore. In the same way that the background frequency won't support governmental institutions and systems like we had in the past. All of this is changing. And of course, this brings up a lot of fear because what 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 do I believe in? Who do I look to? Think about it. In the past, authority was always outside of ourselves. It was like we were kids. It was like we were teenagers still living at home. Now we're about to get kicked out of home, and the authority is inside ourselves. It's a real period of just learning who do I trust? And the answer resoundingly has to be I trust myself. I trust myself. In the past, we trusted the bank. Well, the bank can't go bust. We trusted the police. Well, the police are honest. We trusted the teachers. Teachers have the best intentions of our student. We trusted the doctors. Like I just think of this as an example. Like a couple of years ago, when my dad was dying, and we were in hospital so much with him, and I have so much respect for doctors, but the work they do just doesn't allow them to really care for people. And I saw over and over again how my dad just gave all his power away to doctors. They would say, we need to do this, we need to do this. And my dad would never question it. He would just say, please, please. And of course, my dad was riddled with fear about his bad health. I think in the future, and this is an interesting thing, if I go to a doctor, I'll sometimes question what they say. And I'll sometimes kind of just be, oh, are you sure about that? Is there another way to do this? What do you imagine? And if a doctor, on occasion, if a doctor prescribes me with something, I'm kind of going to feel it out before I just kind of blindly take it. Now that's my way of moving through the world, but this is sort of how I think we're all going to be moving through the world. Now that doesn't mean that you kind of quit your job and you burn your health insurance and you break up with your partner right away. But it does mean that in any situation where you have just been blindly putting your faith outside of yourself or trusting outside of yourself, this energy will be more about, well, no, I know me better than anybody else. And I'm just going to see how this feels, right? And yes, of course, once it feels good in yourself, then yes, put your faith in other people and put your faith in things. But the real shift that's happening is that we are becoming empowered and we're standing up to authority because we're recognizing that the authority is inside ourselves. And so this is the period, this is the kind of the phase that we're moving through. And it's a phase where we're going from a time where it was so crucial to fit in to a time where if you can be authentic, if you can really, really trust yourself, you're going to do fine. You're going to do absolutely fine. And this is something that we've been talking about in the coaching tier in the Patreon. This idea that you will be instructed. There are prompts, pings, voices, if you like, in your subconscious that you can connect to, you can communicate with, you can seek instruction, and they will always tell you the thing to do. And if you can trust in that, it leads you to a place of feeling so powerful, so supported, so backed up. So much of our fear is the fear that I'm going to fail. And when I fail, they'll abandon me. Think about this. I will fail and they will abandon me. When you connect to an inner trust, you can never be abandoned. When your sign of success is, did I listen to my inside? Then you can never fail. And that's what we're moving to. We're moving to a place where you will never be abandoned and you will never fail. So don't be afraid. I'm going to be talking a lot more about this subject in the next year. Excuse me. And a lot more about it, kind of like how to prepare for this in the coaching tier. But just to say, thanks for signing up to this Patreon. Thanks for joining. And if you're listening to this, I think if you're already sort of vaguely on board with this, then you don't need to be scared. You just need to keep on trusting in yourself and leaning into your authenticity. Okay, thank you.